It's a rainy Friday in Greenwood, Indiana. The geese are about to overtake my apartment complex. I can only hope to be crowned one of their servants when the uprising happens. Hey guys, just a few announcements before I start this video. We're going to be finishing Ephesians 1 today. Firstly, church is happening at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning. We won't be having any 9:05 classes, but we do have tables for families in the back because we don't have children's church. And there's definitely enough space in the sanctuary for everyone to social distance, so we're excited to have you. And that night, we're having a youth service at 6. Youth, go to both. And the youth service will be a lot like youth group was with games and everything, but we'll be at these back tables that we're using during church. And we're going to use those to kind of form groups, and we'll still have a lesson and prayer and all that. So I'm excited to do that with you guys. So, also, after that, I will be recording my lesson. And so I'll be doing one big video a week rather than these 3 smaller videos. So we're going to look at verses 18 through 23 today. And they say, "The eyes of your understanding being enlightened, that you may know what is the hope of his calling, what are the riches of the glory of his inheritance in the saints, and what is the exceeding greatness of his power toward us who believe, according to the working of his mighty power, which he worked in Christ when he raised him from the dead and seated him at his right hand in the heavenly places, far above all principality and power, and might and dominion, and every name that is named, not only in this age, but also in that which is to come. And he put all things under his feet, and gave him to be head over all things to the church, which is his body, the fullness of him who fills all in all." So this is really fun because we see that Christ is now, over everything. And Paul, when we first started this passage, he mentions that he's praying for them. He says, "I mention you in my prayers often." So he says, I'm praying for wisdom and understanding, and these are what he prays their understanding. These are 2 specific things he wants them to understand. The first one, in 18, it says, "The eyes of your understanding being enlightened, that you may know what is the hope of his calling, where are the riches of his inheritance to the saints." So we see there that, we get a hope in him, right? So that means, because hope, we think that's something that we're confident about, something that we hope is going to happen. That's what motivates us, something we're looking forward to. So we see it's the hope of his calling. So when we get called, that we receive that hope. The second one, what are the riches of the glory of his inheritance? The riches of glory, knowing that we have an inheritance, right? And what was that inheritance? It was the salvation that comes from him dying. So we get to glory in the riches of salvation and all that come with it. And lastly, it says, "And what is the exceeding greatness of his power?" So power is the last thing that we get to understand. Because once we understand Christ's power, right, which he's about to explain further, we have that power in us. So he goes on to explain the power. It says, "Which he worked in Christ when he raised him from the dead and seated him at the right hand in the heavenly places, far above all principality and power and might and dominion, and every name that is named, not only in this age, but also in which is to come." So we see 2 things. Firstly, that power is in us. The power that resurrected Christ is within us. We have access to it. And secondly, we see that where Christ is, we see that he is now above all. It says, "And he put all things under his feet and gave him to be head over all things to the church, which is his body, the fullness of him who fills in all." So now we get to see that Christ has been raised up over all of us to this place of glory, to where he can be a mediator between us and God, to where we can speak with God because we've accepted him. So 2 questions to end. Number 1, what is your hope in? Where do you find hope? Do you find it in relationships? What do you look forward to? Or do you look forward to salvation, doing Christ's work? And secondly, what is do you use that power? Do you believe in this salvation? Do you understand this inheritance, and do you use that? Does that give you that confidence? Do you get that hope from that, right? What can that power enable you to do? Paul tells us that when he is weak, that's when Christ can work into him, because that's when Christ's strength comes in. So where are you weak? What areas do you need Christ's power? I'll see you guys on Monday on YouTube.